Welcome into a Week 10 defensive breakdown of the Green Bay Packers. Obviously, the Packers had a 7-10 loss against the Philadelphia Eagles, but overall, this was a great defensive performance. They really stepped up in the run game. Obviously, it was 111 total rushing yards, but they held Saquon to 22 rushes and only 60 yards on the ground. So the team averaged only 3.3 yards, and I think you'll take that any week from a defense. And the DBs as well stepped up in coverage. They were much better than the previous weeks. So let's dive into the film and see who really stood out. Here we've got a 1st and 10 in the first quarter, and I think the Packers are happy to have Wyatt back up on this front. And this is just going to be a really good play from him shedding late and making a tackle. But we'll be able to see this much better from the end zone angle, and we'll be able to look at the run fits that this Packers defense has. And we're going to see something that the Packers were doing in early downs. They were having this kind of a zero tech, right? So he's head up, he's a nose directly on the center, has a 2-gap responsibility. And I think that was giving some fits to their center. So focus on Wooden here. Obviously, they get a very good push. You can see the flow obviously coming down here, but Quay, he's going to be reading this guy. He sees he's going to sift across, he's going to kick out. So he's going to change his angle of pursuit. And Saquon's going to be reading that. So you can see he kind of jumps back. He's thinking there's going to be this kind of cutback lane available for Saquon. So he's trying to cut that off. He recognizes that that is potential based on the backs of all of these offensive linemen. And because Saquon sees Quay jump in, he's going to jump back outside. But I really like the pursuit from the safeties. Safeties both had a really good game. McKinney is firing down into this gap in case Saquon decides to jump outside. And then you also have Evan Williams because Quay jumps back inside thinking that it might be a cutback. You've got Williams who's going to fire down and now replace Quay Walker in that gap. So just great team defense. You can see all of those gaps stuffed up, and then you just have great individual effort here by Wyatt to shed off his blocker and make a tackle. So really nice job by the Packers defense very early in this game. Of course, with a back like Saquon Barkley, you're going to give up a few explosive runs. Here you have a 15-yard run by Saquon, just showing good patience, good burst, getting upfield. McKinney making the tackle. We'll see it from the end zone angle. This is just a really good job by the Eagles offensive line. You're just going to see here, you've got Lane Johnson. He is uncovered. There's nobody there. So he's just going to immediately climb to the second level. Here you've got now Colby Wooden as a 1-tech. So he's just going to take him man. That leaves this center uncovered. There's nobody there. So he's just going to climb to the next level. So they're going to secure with their offensive line both the first and the second level. And anytime you do that with Saquon, you're going to get a decent gain. So Wyatt tries to fight inside. That's going to create a cutback lane. Leaves his gap. And that's obviously going to give just enough space for Saquon to jump outside. And McKinney's able to make a tackle so he doesn't get further than 15 yards. Next play, we're going to focus on Colby Wooden, Devontae Wyatt, obviously in the center, and then Quay Walker, who's going to make a nice play. But having Colby Wooden back healthy has been very, very helpful. You're just going to see both Wyatts. We'll see it a lot better on the other view, but both Wyatts and Wooden are double teamed in this situation. So they're going to work off of those double teams. You got 69 who's going to make sure he's working off that double team up to the mic. And we can just see he gets there a little bit late. Quay's able to use his agility to swipe off and get in for a run stop. But we also have Wooden. He's getting double teamed and he's barely moving. All right. He's getting pushed by two 300-plus pound men. He gets maybe pushed a yard, but that is really, really good by Colby Wooden to put up a fight against that double team and then get an arm on the ball carrier. We'll watch it from the other angle as well. You've got 2 double teams working to that next level. Everything looks like it's blocked up. You're going to get a nice seam here for Saquon. And Wooden just keeps fighting. Keeps fighting. He's able to stuff that gap, and then Quay uses that agility, uses his hands to extend and fill that gap in order to make a play. A really nice job by the defensive line there, and Quay for filling that gap. Here we've got another 1st and 10. Lots of 1st and 10s today on this breakdown, but this is just going to be a lot of pressure from Parsons. You'll see him at the top of the screen there with an inside rush against Mailata. Sells the speed up field, gets a little swim move, forces Hurts outside the pocket, but he's able to escape because there's no contain anymore, and then he's able to find A.J. Brown. Coverage-wise, I don't know what this route is. We'll focus on A.J. Brown up at the top of the screen, and I don't know if he was expecting the ball to come his way because he just kind of jogs off and sits in this soft spot all the way to the sideline. And this should be on Bullard because it looks like they're playing a traditional cover 3. You've got your middle high safety. You've got your deep third defender on the other side. Obviously, since that middle high defender is focused on anything going vertical, he can't take this cross, so Nixon is just going to attach. But this should be Bullard pushing out, getting to A.J. Brown because he's supposed to have that curl to flat area, right? So he's got eyes on the quarterback, doesn't really pay attention to where A.J. Brown is, so he's not going to be able to get out there and make that play. So makes it tough on Valentine because he's got to make that decision of, I need to take this vertical defender, but I also have to account for Brown, who's just kind of sitting here on the sideline. So Hurts makes a nice throw. Pressure from Parsons, not able to get there for a sack, and Eagles are able to get a cheap 7 yards. All right, this play, we are going to focus on Edgerrin Cooper. This is a 3rd and 8, and this is actually a really good play call by the Eagles. You obviously have a very mobile quarterback with Jalen Hurts, and we just see that there, the punch out and the fumble recovery by Nixon. If number 2 is not there making contact, if Jahan Dotson doesn't get a hand on him, that is a touchdown. All right, so good job on Dotson for actually putting hands on him, because if he has a straight line and doesn't have to slow down after being wrapped up, I think that's a touchdown. Also, good effort by Lane Johnson pushing him out of bounds. But this is just a good call by the Eagles. You spread everyone out. You've got no one in the middle of the field, right? So you've essentially got man coverage based on what it looks like. They sit in their zones, and now you've got one-on-one with an offensive lineman and a safety. And Nixon able to be there, perfect spot. Packers are able to take some points off the board. I'll watch it from the other angle as well. Just a very quick draw. Gonna have the center that's gonna kind of pull out, do a little skip step, get up one-on-one on safety. McKinney does a nice job of wrapping him up. Obviously, by falling underneath him, he's got to make sure that it's got to be the forearm that goes down or the shin in order for him to be down, and good awareness by Cooper to punch that ball out. So a really nice job. Finally, all that talk of, punching the ball out has paid off in this game. And here we are, another 1st and 10, this time in the second quarter. We got Quay Walker in the middle of the field. That's who we're going to focus on. And this is just really good job getting downhill, but also being patient. We're fortunate that Mailata falls down. And Quay is going to make a nice play on this. We'll watch it from the end zone angle. It's a little bit clearer, even though you got the pole in the way. But Mailata, he's going to try to pull. He falls down, so I think he's going to try to skip step and get up and take that first linebacker. He falls down, and then we got good patience here by Walker, kind of staying square, waiting for Saquon to make a decision before he breaks down. As soon as he makes that decision, he fires down, wraps up, and gets a nice tackle for loss. So really nice job by Quay Walker here, filling that open gap, getting downhill at the line of scrimmage, and then making a play as soon as Barkley breaks out. So really nice job there by Quay. Here we are a little bit later in the second quarter, and this could have been a huge potential game-changing play. Focusing on Quay Walker again. Got a play action, and he's just going to send it down into the line of scrimmage. So I'm not really a big fan of that unless he's supposed to be, a blitzer, or he's green dogging and he's supposed to be attached to that fullback, right? But I don't like his initial read here. And then he's going to run outside, and I think he needs to get his head around just to see if there's any potential receivers in the area, because he does it a little bit late, right? He recognizes here, he's turned his head, and he's looking for that tight end, but he overruns it. He looks back for the ball and not able to get his hand on it, just out of his reach. So if he was able to be a little bit more patient, because he could look in front of him here and see, hey, he's got a teammate. All right, we got two guys out there. Maybe we try to slow down our pursuit, because there's a lot of depth there for Jalen Hurts. So he's got to actually, in order to get a positive gain, he's got to somehow outrun Carl Brooks, who's heading down the sideline, and the other defender that's here. So he's got to play pass in this situation. Does try to do that, but of course just goes over his hand, and they're able to get a decent gain on this play. So we'll watch it from the other angle as well. Play action, gets sucked in. He stops just a little bit too late. That would have been a sick interception, and it would have put the Packers in scoring range right away in a game that was 0-0. And right after, you get a shot play from the Eagles. They just saw how much the backers fired up on the play action. So they're going to run another play action off the back of that. And you got a two-man route. You got a deep post with a deep cross, right? A dig route, essentially. And this is just a good job by Nixon making a play. All right, he's patient. He's able to sit on that hip of Goddard, and then get his hand up and break up that pass. So really nice job. He had a few pass breakups in this one, a couple against Goddard. And then we'll look at one of his matchups where, some people might say he was cooked, but we'll see why he gave up a reception to Devontae Smith later in the game. And this next play, it was a 3rd and 2. It ends up being a pass interference by Williams. He's a little bit late reacting to Goddard here. He goes downhill thinking that ball's going to be more into the flat, kind of panics, bumps into him. I think the pass was a little bit high, but I also think it's funny looking at all of the referees. You're going to have a ref down here. You're going to have a ref down here. You're going to have a ref here. You got 3 people. There you go. There's 1 flag, 2 flags, and here you go. Good form from that ref. And that is just insane, having all those flags for the same calls. So 3rd down, it's a 6-yard penalty, automatic 1st down, keeps the drive alive. Doesn't end up hurting them in the end, but I just thought it was funny looking at all the refs throw the flags simultaneously. Now we're into the 3rd quarter. This is just the Eagles finding a soft spot in the zone. And Goddard just sitting down. You got a too high shell. Looks like some form of quarters, right? Even cover 6. It looks like a quarter half here, because you've got a low corner on the bottom of the screen. He's just kind of sinking, knowing that he's got a safety over the top. And Goddard just does a good job here running seems like a swirl route, kind of goes to a corner and then just sits down in the soft spot of the zone. Gets a 22-yard gain for the Eagles. So they're able to move the ball here. They eventually set themselves up for a score. And the very next play, I think the Packers were lucky that this is a missed throw. Got that fake toss. Can watch the flow of the defense here. They're going to flow towards that pitch. And that's going to open up the seam route. And you can just see if that was an accurate throw, if that is perfectly laid onto that tight end, it is at least down to the 15-yard line and puts the Eagles in a much better position. So we're very lucky that the Packers are able to get away with an incomplete pass on this one. Splits the too high look perfectly. A really good call in that situation by the Eagles. Just unfortunate execution. Here we have a 2nd and 4. Packers obviously anticipating run in this situation, so the backers are going to get quite aggressive. Same with Bullard coming down. And just a nice tackle for loss again by Quay Walker. I'll see it a lot better from the end zone angle. You can see Enagbare does a good job of keeping this guard. And you can see that there's just a lane that's opening up. He knows that it's going to be some form of outside run. Quay gets downhill, makes that tackle. Obviously, a loss of 3 or so on this play, so it turns into a 3rd and 7, and it's going to end up forcing a field goal. Here, we're going to focus on Parsons again, getting quick pressure, forcing a quick check down from Hurts. And even though we didn't have any sacks in this game, Packers didn't have any sacks, there was pressure, forcing Hurts to roll out. He does a really good job of extending plays. This is another one of those examples. Extends it, but of course it is, I think, just at the line of scrimmage here. So no gain, maybe 1 yard on it. But Saquon able to make that catch, not able to get his footing, just kind of falls down, anticipating some contact and trying to limit devastating play for the Eagles in case it got punched out by a pursuing linebacker. Next play, we're going to focus on Wyatt again. I've obviously talked a lot about him in this video, and this is just a really good job. Might have been a called run stunt here. Anticipating that this is going to be a zone run to the outside. Now Wyatt just gets upfield and disrupts that play in the backfield. We're going to see him make an inside move here. Obviously, he's anticipating, I'm going to be covered up, so he's probably going to take me. And if he's responsible for me, I'm just going to slip inside. But it also could have been a miscommunication here by 64. Right? Usually, he should have his eyes up and take an inside rusher. But Wyatt does a good job here of slanting inside and getting in the backfield untouched. So either a mistake by the center, who's obviously not their typical center, but a good job with that run stunt, that slant getting into the backfield. Now, this is a really good example. We talked about it on the very first play as well, but this is just good team defense. Stopping this run, making it stretch all the way out, and really good pursuit by Cooper. So we'll see Cooper obviously finding that lane. He's just instinctual that way of finding a lane, getting downhill, and putting pressure on the running back. We also have Williams jumping outside, becoming that force defender, making everything work back inside. Saquon has to run out for a loss of 1 yard, but we'll see it from this angle as well. You can see toss on the outside. They're trying to pin and then pull the tackle. They do get that pin pull. They get that first block, but that guard is missing that backer that's flowing downhill. All right. So Cooper does a really good job of beating that guard, but also credit to Williams, who gets outside, because if he gets sealed on the inside, that he could get around to the edge, but he beats the receiver to the outside. A little bit of a hold wrapped around the neck, and then he's able to get pushed out of bounds. So really nice job by the Packers defense there. All right, here you have it, an explosive play for the Eagles. This was on a 3rd and 7, a big run after catch in this situation. Packers are bringing pressure. Go back to the start. You've got essentially man coverage in this situation. All right, so you're going to have man with one high safety. You're bringing pressure on the front. You're going to have a QB spy right here. And then you're going to have Quay Walker, which I don't know if this is his responsibility or not. I don't know the defensive call, but this is just my thought process is you're going to green dog. You're going to see if this If this running back stays in, you're going to just continue your blitz. You're going to run through him and make a play. If he leaks out and swings, then you have to peel off of your blitz, and you got to peel with that running back to make sure that he's accounted for, because you've got man across the board. If you're sending, 6 up front, then you've got to account for that running back. Nobody accounts for that running back. The pressure doesn't get there. Hurts does a good job of keeping his eyes looking at the coverage. There's really nothing downfield, so he's got to go to his check down. Finally gets there, and there's just nobody there, right? Catches it. Really nice spin move by Saquon. Good block downfield. And that really sets up a score for the Eagles. So just a little bit of a breakdown. So as well as Quay Walker has played, I think that might have been a breakdown on his part or Edgerrin Cooper, but I have a hard time believing that Edgerrin Cooper on the other side is responsible for Saquon. I would imagine that Cooper is responsible for the QB, right? He's a QB spy. He's staying at the line of scrimmage, watching directly to that QB. And you can see Quay Walker make eye contact with the running back and see what he's doing. Hops outside, but then he must see, I've got a lane and the back of the QB is there. I could take this shot, but because he's already slowed down, he's indecisive. Right? I think if he just decides to hit that hole and go, he probably gets a sack, maybe forced fumble. But because he's hopping around, he's indecisive in this situation, it actually hurts the Packers and leads to a big play by the Eagles. And then that leads to the very next play. Not really much to break down here, but just a play action and a shot play. Challenging that deep safety. You have to do this a few times in a game. Give your guys a chance one-on-one. Devontae Smith has a ton of speed. Ball a little bit underthrown. So Williams does have a chance to try to break that up. He's not able to do it. And instead, that big run by Saquon, I think 41 yards, leads to this touchdown pass to Devontae Smith. Got a few more plays that we'll look at, and we're just going to highlight Evan Williams. He had some mistakes last week against the Panthers, and here he's just a lot better. I'm guessing that these guys were challenged based on the run game last week, and this is just a really nice job getting downhill. You can see he's showing the too high look. As soon as he sees that tap, right, he's reading this tap. He knows that they're going to go on this count. He's firing downhill, and just look at this by the Packers defense. You've got Valentine. If this ends up being a read option, he is sealed. It's going to be one-on-one Valentine making a tackle or attempting to make a tackle on Jalen Hurts, or Hurts is just going to give the ball and hope that Saquon can make a guy miss. All right, so Williams comes downhill, he doesn't get shook by Saquon despite the juke move. He's able to wrap up and make a nice play in the backfield. Then we'll focus at the top of the screen here. This is going to be Nixon getting beat a little bit, but I don't think it's necessarily getting beat. This is just a really good route by Devontae Smith, because Smith talked about his top end speed. He's very, very fast, right? So he's just going to be reading the hips. He's pushing vertical, right? He's getting upfield. And as soon as Nixon opens up, that's when Devontae Smith is going to hit his break and he's going to get outside. And that's just really good timing as well from Hurts, because this ball is coming out with anticipation. Right? He's already patted the ball. He's ready to make this throw. And there the ball is coming out at the break, putting in a spot very close to the sideline. And Smith does a good job of getting both feet in. Nixon as well. He recovers. He makes a nice hit. That could have jarred the ball loose. So I wouldn't say that this is a negative play. It's just really good plays by both teams, actually. And then the last play that I will look at is the trip by Micah Parsons. Obviously, he's here on the inside of McDuffie, and this saves a touchdown. So Parsons, he's obviously trying to shed, and you can see That is a very obvious from this angle. I don't know how the line judge doesn't see that. He kicks his foot out. He's tripping him, but that saves a touchdown. You've got McKinney out here. He's the only one, all right? But Saquon is going to probably make him miss, and he's got a lot of room on the sideline. There's so much open space that this trip that doesn't get called actually gives the Packers a chance to win this game. Of course, they don't end up doing that, but that is just crazy to me that this doesn't get called. So he's there. I can see from the perspective of these refs, it looks like he's just wrapping up. So if those are the refs that are looking for tripping on the tackle, I can see from their angle it's not necessarily going to be called. That is a touchdown saving trip by Micah Parsons. All right, so that's going to do it for the defensive breakdown. Obviously, lots of run game because Philadelphia was committed to running the ball despite not having a lot of success. Only 183 passing yards on the day as well from Hurts. So under 300 total yards. Only 10 points to the defending Super Bowl champs. Although they've had, admittedly, some offensive struggles with the new offensive coordinator. Still a really, really good performance. If we think back, all these losses and ties, right, 3 losses, 1 tie, the margin is 9 points. Right? You lose by a field goal here, lose by a field goal last week, lose by a field goal against Cleveland, you tie the Dallas Cowboys. It's 9 points separating the Packers from an undefeated schedule. So I don't think it's necessarily time to panic with the way that this defense is playing, but certainly the offense needs to turn things around against the Giants, and that's going to be a challenge with the Giants' defensive line. But of course, I will be back with a breakdown on Monday for the Packers offense and Tuesday for the Packers defense against the New York Giants. Of course, every week I've got the Packers playbook on Friday coming out. So thank you guys for watching. I appreciate the views, appreciate the comments, love talking Packers, and I hope to see you guys in the next video. Take care.